just want to say thanks for inviting me up here to give a little bit of one owner's opinion on what it is we want when we say thou shalt do BIM. So we're trying to go through a little bit of that today. So I want to start with, this is an old slide, and I'm sure many of you guys have seen this on the internet many times. It's been used with from the PM I Institute, everything about the project, and the disconnect between what the client asked for, what they want, and how everybody along the way interpreted it. So one of the reasons we get there, of course, is that we don't do a good enough job of explaining ourselves. Now, BIM is a great tool to be able to explain what it is we want, but you could flip that same slide around, and this just says what the BIM model is. And we find that that's happened a lot about what it is when I, as the owner, say, I want BIM, what does the architect hear, and what does the contractor provide, and what does the facilities guys think that means? So I just thought it would be clever to show you how that could be a double-edged slide. Before I go too much further, I just want to get an idea, like, so I'm up here speaking as a client. Is there any other owners or building operator in the room? Just a couple? I thought I could be the guy that could speak for all owners, but I can't really. Somebody's going to keep it check. I know I see one building operator in the corner. What architects? How many? Contractors? A few? And then other, I guess, is everybody else? Right. Okay, so let's have some fun. A little bit about who I am. So I work for UHN, which is a University Health Network. We're a hospital organization here in Toronto. We have 4 hospitals across 8 sites and a total of about 6 million square feet, 2 million lease space and 4 million of our own properties. So we are committed to BIM, although we're just getting started, but we are committed to BIM because we feel that it will definitely improve our record keeping. We help us plan our projects better in the future, find things to help us make improvements for energy cycling and everything. It'll tell us about what our buildings are doing, and the last great thing is reduce costs because we're going to reduce our risk. We're just getting started at a project at the Toronto Western Hospital, which is just a hit occupancy, and Ronald and Jay Levine have been working with me on the project for 4 years plus, and they themselves for 6. And we didn't even ask for BIM on that project. That was something that they led UHN along, saying that, you know what, you guys should probably look at this, and we're going to provide it for you. And we didn't really know what we wanted because we didn't ask for anything, but thankfully, in this case, the architects kind of told us what we didn't know we needed. So we're going to start with a little bit of what the current state of BIM, but basically where we were at before Crumble started, and as far as our record keeping and what we knew about our buildings. And we thought we could do a little bit better than this as far as what our records were and how we track them, right? You call the contractors, the builders, and say, yeah, we have a drawings room, go down and find what you need, and if anything you missed, it's your responsibility. But we knew we couldn't leave it that way, so we thought that room's a mess, we got to clean it up. So we just sent the housekeeping staff down and said, there you go, the room's clean. Is that better? No idea what was thrown out. So there we have a bunch of information that probably all of it was obsolete, but it's gone. So we have no idea what's left. There still does show a disconnect between what we want and what we ask for. And actually, I'm going to ask Jay to talk about this slide a little bit more.
So just from a recent RFP in private sector, the language in the RFP that we're responding to as part of a procurement process just asks us to describe our capabilities. You know, it says, what do you do, what do you have? It doesn't stipulate anything. It doesn't ask us to produce the project in BIM. It doesn't give us any guidelines. So when we see that, when design consultants who are pricing something competitively see that, we say, just like the contracting community looks at our documents and says, if it's not there, we're not pricing it. We say, if it's not there, as we're trying to figure out our fees and model this, big team of civil engineers and landscape consultants and code consultants and put all that together in a fee model that's supposed to leave us enough fee to last on a project for 6 years, BIM's not part of it unless it's specifically asked for. And we have yet to see it asked for with any specificity or with any degree of clarity.
So basically we we know now that the owners have to become more educated with BIM, and if there's one thing that last project has taught me is that it taught me how much I didn't know about BIM, and I'm learning every day how much more I don't know about it. But this isn't CAD anymore, and the pictures that you see on the side of the slide here are really just SketchUp models, pretty pictures. And I know a lot of people, at least on my side of the industry, think that's what BIM is. We're going to have a nice three-dimensional rendering of the drawing. We're going to be able to see the colors and see what the carpet is. That's useful for maybe a marketing point of view, but it doesn't get us anywhere near where we want to go. And what we have also realized is you have to really start with what you want at the end when you start the project. We didn't realize that at the onset of this last project, but now we know what to do next time. So what do we want? Not sure I even know a whole yet, but we're going to try to go through some of the items. What this slide is meant is, yes, it looks like, just a pretty picture, like maybe you could say it's like a SketchUp, but there's so much more to it than that. Aside from just the fact that it's got the pure, accurate geometry and the information is actually there, you can go down deeper and you can pull away things and look at the structural, the nuts and bolts. Most of you people in the room, this is not new. I'm not telling you, I'm not bestowing any new information on you guys, but it was quite an eye-opener for us to know that, yeah, it's more than just something you can do a fly-through, that you can show a donor, or you can do something like that. How many times we asked that, Ron? A lot. But to the next stage of, this is just to pull out just purely electrical information of a part of the building, and then to have the data on the side that, like all your information about what type of light fixture that is, where do we buy it from, can we have a PDF of the cut sheet for our facilities guys, can we have our maintenance operation manual embedded in this. That's the power that we now realize at UHN, that's something that we can grab a hold of and do something with. The picture is great, but it's for after the life cycle of the building, know that light is from Lutron, and this one is from such and such, and this is how we got it, where we got it, and this is where we can get another one when it breaks down, and this is where we can do. And to have that all in one big place, as opposed to my previous slide where you get the manual, you throw it in the drawing room, and good luck finding it afterwards. So that's where we really see the things are going. The constructive, actually I should, some people in this room may know a fellow named Ian Trudeau, who probably takes a lot of credit for this drawing. When this is a structural part from our last project, but there's more to it than the construction interface and the clash detection. Although this is, Ron, do you want to talk a bit about it?
Just also to step back, just to set the stage in this. Scott's describing a future wish list, and we're also looking at a bit of a history case here. Ian and Jay and I spoke a little bit about this project, the Crumble Discovery Center, a couple years ago at another talk, and it was maybe a bit more. At that time we spoke about the process and what we did with the BIM model. And in the context of what an owner wants, I think these next few slides are a little bit just about what went on with Crumble, because I don't think we're there yet. Obviously, that's why we wouldn't have the talk. There's a bunch of guys in this room. There's some people from Ellis Dunn and Black and Mac here who are also part of this project, so some of this is not new to them, but this first slide is literally just as a design collaboration idea. Early on with the Halsall Revit model, we needed to look at a lot of major structural and mechanical interference issues, and this is just one of their crazy Revit model diagrams looking at literally this gigantic concrete transfer beam and a post-tension condition we had to deal with. As architects, we wanted to see how many holes we could put through for sleeving in terms of getting our mechanical systems through. But this is just was a design element in the process, and we can just skip through. The next one is, you won't be able to see anything in this, but it's a bit more about, I'll step back again, the mechanical and electrical design team didn't embrace the Revit model in this project, so the structural and the two architectural teams were working that way. So this is a slide of sort of halfway to the proper way of working, where the left image is just of the mechanical design team, the CAD drawing of a particular element, and then what the Black and Mac team and Ellis Dunn were starting to do was look at trying to bring that missing BIM model component into it, and I think they were just using at the time QuickPen to develop a model. Then leading to this spooling diagram, you probably can't see anything on it from what I can tell. It's a black and Mac spooling diagram on the left of this particular pump and pipe fitting array, but with the 3D model on the right, and that's where we want to get to. Like, this is easy. This is the design, the fabrication, the construction, sizing, and getting it to site. But we want to be able to get that BIM information back to the owner and into a better model.
And I want to get there because I don't want to pay one guy to do the drawing, another guy to do the drawing, another guy to do another. I want to pay once. I'm selfish that way. These next couple slides, I got to say, I'll give credit to, this isn't, I wish this was one of my projects. It's not. It's actually a Skanska project from the US, but this is again, going back to where we want to get to, is utilizing the BIM model for prefabrication and the spooling process, because that is obviously something that you can do, where you can lay out the drawings or the model in such a way that you can allow for to build your corridors in a warehouse where you don't have, in Toronto, we have weather delays, we have all kinds of trades dropping on top of each other. Actually, go back one more, Jay. Just wanted to point out, like, you know, on this one where they're hoisting up the section of the corridor, they have actually even installed one half of the drywall onto the side, which is always a pain in the butt to try to do once it's up, and there's pipes and cable trays and everything else in the way. So this is just something, an efficiency that BIM can bring to our project, which, from my point of view, again, I'm going to see my project get done faster. I'm going to see hopefully less cost because everybody is coordinated ahead of time. The trades can be more efficient because they're working at waist level in a conditioned environment as opposed to on a scissor lift up in the site, bumping into 3 other guys on other scissor lifts. So that's where I would like us to get to. That's one of the reasons why we're trying to embrace BIM. And so the next level of where we wanted to get to once the building is up is the facilities operations. We're not there yet. I'm not going to try to overstate that we have all this done, but I want to get to, because I really do feel that utilizing a BIM model that is connected to the BAS, the building automation system, and the facilities management system, that's the holy grail. Then you have something that you can really take advantage of. See what's happening in your building in real time. If that pump needs to be replaced, I want to see that glowing red on the model. That's where I want to get to. I want the guy's BlackBerry to go off to know that he's got to go up there to look at something, and it all represented in one place. So I got to thank Jay for some of these images from those other projects. Again, these aren't mine, but
this is actually an example from the Mars facility, the new Mars Tower 8, that's under construction. And along with Reed Points, who's sort of sitting back there, we've been asked to model the base building conditions, all the head-end utilities, and what the really interesting thing that Mars is as a progressive landlord, their intention with this model is to hand the base building geometry and information model to the tenants' design teams, and then require that they, at the end of their design process and construction process, hand back the model to the landlord so that they can, and our obligation is to, on behalf of the landlord, to knit that model together so that at the end of the day, this entire building with multiple tenants that have a fairly significant density of, scientific equipment, they can look at the entire connected load. How many fume hoods are there on the building? How are they connected? Regardless of whose fume hoods they are. Or if a tenant wants to put a new piece of equipment, is there somebody else's piece of sensitive equipment above or below going to interfere with that? Vibration, EMF frequency, that sort of thing. And so, Reed, what's this, about 300 odd thousand square feet in total? I mean, it's a fairly significant amount. And for the most part, in these types of buildings, all of these pieces are islands, if you will. And if something goes wrong, the landlord does not know what's in their tenant's space. Mars, as a progressive landlord, wants to know the complete picture of their building, and they're looking at the BIM model as being able to provide that to them. And we think that's really interesting. But it's a work in progress. You'll see we've done pieces of this model, but not, and we have yet to receive the design models back from the tenants, and we're going to see what kind of mess we get back from them. And then I think we have a video that...
So to showcase, to try to demonstrate a little bit of what could be possible with the BIM model related to the facilities management software and the building automation, I think we had a video. If you guys could switch over and play that for us, that'd be great.
Of the future, where building information models, BIM, can be used as a tool for facilities management. These are essentially 3D model interfaces with links to information on the building and the equipment needing to be maintained. Let's start with an example of a work order. In this example, there is a pump with a possible leak in building 720. On the work order now is an icon, which, when selected, takes you straight into the model where the pump to be repaired is located. Once you're in the model, you can then select the pump, and a menu will come up. From there, you can get to the O&M manual, where you can download or print, and you can also get to the parts list. Both of these documents are linked through the icon to your existing file systems. You're also able to get into your asset management application, in this case Maximo, where you can look at the information stored in the system. You're even able to access the building control system, essentially a schematic of the mechanical equipment in the room. Here you can see the pump's current temperature, flows, and pressures, along with the ambient conditions. Another important piece is the laser scan. This is because not everything will be modeled. This allows you to be able to determine if there's any issues such as access, so you can plan your work accordingly. By selecting the panel schedule icon, the electrical panel associated with the pump will appear in blue. You will also access the panel schedule for your lockout and tagout. Then, by selecting the electrical panel, other electrical equipment associated with the pump will appear, such as the VFD. The VFD also has a menu. From there, you can get to the specs, and you also can get to a picture. Now that you've seen the view of the future for facilities management, we would like you to ask you a few more questions regarding how accessing information
That's good.
using BIM would impact your current work practices.
So again, that wasn't one of my projects, but if you notice, the title of the presentation was what I want, what now I have, because I don't have everything I want. The other, just, why aren't I getting what I want is one of the last things we wanted to talk about on this presentation. And, the reasons that you've heard a lot of these before, and we're going to show up a couple of them. If you want to go to the next one, Jay. So we're all to blame. The owners are to blame because we come up with our roadblock excuses about why the facilities guys will never use it. It's only good for large projects. It's only good for new builds. You don't want to use it for renovations. The design team's got their reasons why they're to blame, and so do the builders. But the facilities management part of it that we just looked at, I want just to keep that in mind, that there's more to the project than the design and construction. The long-term facilities management, I think, is really where the powerful is. So if we can, I think the next slide, Jay, we talked about, it not only can it be used on any size and any scope of project, but the facilities management goes for so much longer during the project, so these excuses at the beginning, I'm hoping won't stop us anymore to keep going and implementing that in more and more projects. Yeah, help me out, Jay.
One other item with the previous slide, when we sat composing this, we kind of looked at these excuses and realized they all come down to kind of time and money. And time and money in projects are always in short supply. But the interesting thing about the discussion between an owner and design team representatives is that the feeling is that with proper use of BIM through the life cycle of the project, and the life cycle is the important thing for us, that overall BIM use reduces time and money, but it at least, as far as a benchmark, it is the same. So it costs the same to do a BIM project. It just reallocates those costs and that time differently. There is more time and more money spent up front in developing the BIM model. So there's, for the hands up that went up from the contractors, there's more money in the project that gets allocated to the design group up front to develop that work. But that money, that investment actually saves time and money later on in the process. And that's sort of, as we looked at this thing, we kind of realized they all are saying the same thing. And we're here to say, having lived a 6-year project, we don't agree, collectively.
Lost my place here, Jay. If we can get to that point where a full model of architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, then we can, okay, now the building's done, but guess what we do in hospitals? We renovate. Usually the day after we move in, we start planning the next renovation. Having that full integrated model, then we're just going to be better off from the whole life cycle of the building. And it also helps the construction team for that coming in to do that next renovation because they know what they're dealing with. The next design team that rolls in knows what they're dealing with because we have everything all in one place where it's all shown concurrently. And Jay, I think you're going to go now to show.
Well, some reasons, that we're still in early days of BIM, and I think that just a couple of casual conversations, over lunch and whatnot, we're preaching to the converted. Everybody is here because they kind of believe at some level that BIM has a business advantage. There's a wide variety of business interests all associated with BIM modeling. But what we're seeing out in the industry is still sporadic, still incoherent, incomplete silos of information. So this is an example of a project where we were on a design build team. We received documents from the owner in CAD. Our submission was all done in CAD. We won the project, and then our friends, the design builder who was our client, sat at the table and said, guess what, we're delivering this in BIM. And we all said, that wasn't the deal. We didn't, fee for that. And they said, too bad, that's what we're doing. And so...
That wasn't me, by the way.
No. But so we did this BIM model. And the interesting thing for us is that all 4 disciplines, architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, were all doing the BIM modeling. Some were early, it was sort of their first project, so it was a little bit cumbersome. But the BIM model here looks okay. It looks the geometry looks okay. It looks fine. But when you start to look at how it actually went together, and it's really probably very difficult to see, mechanical and architectural put lab benches slightly different places with slightly different components. Electrical shows, monuments vertically. Architectural shows them horizontally. Architects drew, fan coil units as the cover in one location. Electrical drew it as the guts in another location. So, the information is there, but it's not really hitting on all cylinders. The lights look like they're dropped down from the ceiling. They look sort of like this. They're not. They're flush with the ceiling, but the first couple of, attempts at it, the lights were several millimeters above the ceiling, and we kept yelling at the electrical guys saying, you haven't put the lights in. They said, no, we did. But they were above the ceiling, so we didn't see them. So they said, fine, we'll drop them 25 millimeters down. So we see them. They're not in the right location. Is the count right? Yes. Is the circuiting right? Probably. We'll find out. But it's not really, I guess what I'm describing is it's still sort of early days. Another project where very highly technical building, structural, electrical, and architectural are all modeling in BIM. And right from the beginning. Mechanical, no. Mechanical's working in CAD. So we're trying to coordinate information. You can see the kind of CAD 2D layer ground floor plane that has the CAD information. This diagram's similar. We're trying to coordinate ductwork that's running through a trestle, and the electrical is really well detailed. The mechanical, which is the much bigger component, the much, as architects, we contend with mechanical stuff, and it takes up a lot more space than electrical. And yet on this project that you can see is almost machine-like, we're working with, one hand tied behind our back. And
just to put that in context, so one of the reasons why I'm not getting what I want is that the whole consulting community is not at the same place yet. Some of the people are lagging behind. Surprisingly, sometimes it's the mechanical guy. Surprising to me, because if anybody should benefit from 3-dimensional representation, it should be them, but not always the case.
Yeah, and that leads to the next couple slides. We'll still pick on the mechanical guys because most of them aren't here. But this is, this everyone will recognize as a dumb old site doodle, but this is also just went on at Crumble. And to be honest, at Crumble, the mechanical constructor team was very advanced, right? I mean,
Further
there's
ahead.
black and white guys here, so, and I think that's where everyone could see that the consultant design side needed to be to that same level, because this is sort of the equivalent of the CAD drawing, but this is really the site guy, one of the old site guys trying to do his little pipe layout drawing at the site, measured. Then you probably absolutely cannot see this model view, but this is the Black and Mack and Elliston, their Revit model of the mechanical penthouse. Huge forest of piping and ductwork in here, and all their handling is. But they had it modeled so everything was buildable and interference was kind of considered. But that, and there's a little zoomed in here, and that's that same area where that hand sketch was for that pipe, and then there's a spooling diagram. So, they made their way through it as constructors, but there's a clear lack of continuity. The design team could and should, and ultimately be part of that same continuum. We're handing off the same information. I think that's, the next slide.
Yeah, so,
I'm just
Go
going to
ahead.
one, and the piece that's really not happening yet is that we as a design community aren't yet specifying in our documents the conduct and the input from the construction community. So, our submittal specifications, we're great at compelling all kinds of either mock-ups or shop drawing submittals, and we have detailed specs about that and what we expect and when. But I think what we need to get to is much more of a handoff where the work that goes into the BIM model by the design team is then very closely followed by the constructor team, and then, most importantly in our opinion, a process followed to strip out certain information from the construction portion of the model, like when certain components were delivered, for constructors that are using it for the 4D, the timing and the sequence. The owner doesn't really care when that component was delivered. He cares, like we saw in that video, what the component is, and so embedding that information into it and handing that information back to the owner is the step that we as consultants have a role in shaping and authoring, and we're not doing it. And we're not doing it because we're not being asked to do it, I think. And so now you're going to ask.
yeah. So I guess where this is all leading is, how do I get what I want? How do I make sure that if I assume I have some understanding of what it is I actually want, how do I make sure that we get it? So there's a couple of, there's a lot of text on the slide, and a lot of it is motherhood that, we have to work together. We have to work, the owners have to inform the consulting team what we want. But the consulting teams, they got to lead us still. Crumble was a great example of that, this Crumble tower that we were finishing up. We didn't even ask for anything, and it was actually Stantec and NXL that kind of led us by the nose and said, this is where you want to go, trust us. And they were right. But what I didn't know at the time is how much more I wanted to go, how much further I wanted to take it. So maybe that's where something, that education I've had. The coming together, we've seen a ton of examples of what happens when everybody's doing their piece. It's just duplication of work and everything. So if we can come together to make sure we're all working off the same page, and maybe that takes a one person or one consultant or somebody on the job who is that person who makes sure that everything is there together. I mean, we've seen the industry go that we now have such thing as a code consultant. We have things like commissioning agents that are responsible for something that traditionally was everybody's part of the job. Maybe that's one idea. I don't know if that's the right idea or not, but maybe that's the idea that we dedicate or a lead consultant is another one that we've seen similar, that there is that BIM coordinator role on the team that lives through the cycle of the project. Just one idea that we came up with. Because what we've realized also is that what you want at the end, you have to start putting it at the beginning, and that's a difficult thing when you don't know what you want. But that's what we're up against. To help with that, what we've decided to do is come up with what we're calling an aspirational statement. So that's something that isn't going to do, it's not going to be a 30-page specification of how the BIM model is going to work on a project, but it is something to kind of set the tone. Again, more of a mission statement, something that we will say that we try to describe what we want out of it. And this is one of Jay's, go back to the first one, Jay, and we should talk about that one. because you had a good story about this, what you got on one of,
Well, I mean, just referring back to the slide earlier where we got that section 12.7 of that RFP, just asked us to describe our Revit and AutoCAD capabilities, but it didn't ask us or compel us or guide us in how they wanted us to do it. And from our point of view, tell us what you want and we'll do it, but don't just ask us what we can do, because we can do anything. Given enough time.
Yeah, it used to be a checkbox
Yeah.
on RFPs, right? Can they do
Are they Revit
Can they do
enabled?
that? Can they do this? And then that you know, likewise, someone who's receiving the RFP proposal will, yes, they're good, they're good, they're good. So they can go in this pile or that pile. So I think it's obviously got to go way, way beyond that for everyone.
so I took a crack at making UHN's aspirational statement that I want to include in our upcoming projects, because we are going to be going for BIM. So, you know, you can read it, I can read it to you, but we do aspire to having a complete and integrated BIM model that includes all of our key building elements, structural, architectural, mechanical, electrical, for all of our facilities across our 8 sites and our 6 million square feet. And I see that model being developed probably by the design team, but there's a cycle to it. I want it to be transitioned over to the builder for their use during renovations or new additions or redevelopment. Then once it's created up to as-built conditions, back to our facilities team for their management and day-to-day updates. And then when I do a renovation, I have that up-to-date information to get back to the next design team. So it always continues to evolve and improve and increase. So the next part of that is that I want to continue to populate this model over time with all the information on the elements of the building. So I want to be able to know everything I need to know about, be able to construct, maintain, operate, repair, replace each one. And again, that holy grail, the tie to the BAS and the facilities management system. That's where I want to get to. That's what we aspire to. Maybe that's too steep a mountain for me to climb this year, but every journey starts with a step. So that's where we're at. But I also want to hear if anybody else in the room is like, how do you get what you want? Because I'm still trying to figure it out. So if anyone's got ideas, if you want to share with the mic or something like that now about what the other ideas are, happy to listen.
Also, just to keep going and put this in a bit of context, you have to remember that Scott's coming to us in the room with, I'll call it a traditional RFP owner requesting services approach, and probably a lot of the people in the room have the joy or not joy of working on P3 type projects. So when you get into the, as design consultants, when you get into the design, build, finance, manage model, and you're on a team, I think we have come further, much further than the Crumble model, in just by necessity. The whole design construction consortium have generally, and if you talk to any of the players in those games, they will be working fairly well and strongly in Revit, because it has to be the way that the eventual owner-operator finds some benefit from the design team model. So I mean, I think we're starting to, as an industry, get part way there, but there's the whole other side of things that's traditional and needs to be addressed. So.
Ian Sherrill from Intuitive. So, yeah, when I was with Hall, so we're the structural consultants.
Put your slide back
Crumble? No, it's okay.
Okay.
I just wanted to comment more on lessons learned from that project, because I think the first time we sat down in Stantec's office, it was 2009, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even sooner.
Yeah, 2008.
And the conversation we had was mainly about, okay, who's going to use Revit? And we never really talked about how.
Yeah.
Or the owner never even came up at all. So,
No.
so lessons learned, that was almost 5 years ago. The thing that I'm seeing now on every sort of startup meeting is sort of a BIM execution plan, where we map out what we want to use the model for from start to finish,
Right.
who the stakeholders are, what their expectations are, and then we actually document, who is modeling what and at what level of detail, right, at each stage of the project, and it really, and then we actually sign off on it. Like, that's a commitment at that point between the design team and the contractor and the owner as to what's going to be in that model, what stage of the game. And I think if you maybe have something like that at an RFP level, so it's very clear from the start what you want out of that model at the end of the day, and then how we can get that model there, because it's obviously, we're not going to put in anchor bolts and fully reinforce a slab, in a schematic design in a structural model. So,
But it'd be nice to have a little bit more mechanical than what we had on Crumble.
right. So
But-
I'm just
Yeah,
mapping that
that's
process out, I think it goes a long way. And
I totally
get
agree
what
with
you
that.
want.
And I also will confess that Tom Strong was in the back of the room. He actually even tried to convince me what I wasn't doing at the time, and I didn't understand what he meant at the time. So I'm not going to say that Tom was right, but
You never want to do that.
no, you don't want to do that.
Hi, Peter Connell from DSRA Architecture. We're in the middle of a project at the moment, and we've been in a kind of an uncomfortable position where the owners asked us for our Revit model. We told them that we were modeling in Revit, but they never asked us to do the project in Revit. We've just taken that on ourselves. And there were interference drawings that were requested for mechanical, and the mechanical contractor wanted our Revit model to save them a lot of time, and the owner put pressure on us to give up the Revit model, but we in the end decided not to give it up because we weren't contracted to produce the Revit model. And we realized
So
that.
why did you?
Why did we? Why did we do it?
No, why did you produce one?
Because we do all of our projects in Revit. So we decided not to, even though structural was in Revit and architectural was in Revit, and mechanical and electrical was not. But anyway, it became a little awkward, and we expect next time the owner may well ask for a Revit model in the RFP, which is just a barrel full of monkeys because we don't know what a Revit or what a building information model is without a lot more information, because we don't know what we're going to hand off to them. And I've been doing this for, well, 8 or 9 years. I still don't quite know what a building information model is. So I guess my question really is somewhat to the architects. Do we have any intellectual right to the model, or should we be giving that up? Should we be compensated for producing the building information model? Yeah, a couple of those questions I'm not quite sure how to handle yet with my clients.
I think we all have that same anxiety, and it's the same if you asked this question 15 years ago about a CAD model, right? And it's the same deja vu, but with Crumble, only the structural team and the architectural teams had Revit information. So we did strip things down and agreed to give it to Tom's guys to help them start the model. But it was only half of the information, right, without the mechanical. So it was the start of a plates and sticks model with cladding information. Really, it was a better than CAD 3D model. So I don't know that. I think we went through the same anxiety about handing over intellectual property, but we went in it. I think we were pretty open about the liability issues, and it wasn't our model wasn't being used for interference. It was the start to help them create an interference model. I think it was pretty open. I mean, Jay was probably more fearful than our guys about it, but I think I couldn't tell you where our office is now at the same kind of position, but I think we're at the same point of willingly handing over the model. Yes, we should be compensated, and I think that's got to be sorted out. I think the AIA has fairly common understanding of how they approach things with the construction industry in the States. We're not there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it is more litigious in the States. Yeah. But, I guess in the perspective of time, a couple of years since then, yeah. I'm comforted by the fact that this country has legislation that deals with copyright law and with intellectual property. But I do think that, in the comments earlier, I do think that the investment, so compensation to the design team to build that model more fully and more usefully for the balance of the team, for everybody else coming downstream, is an obligation by the owner or the project co if it's a P3. But yes, I do think we should be compensated because it is a significant amount of incrementally more work at the outset. And imposes on us, I think, an obligation to be more accurate, earlier, more decisive with, design decisions, all those sorts of things. But I do think that in the world of, we grabbed that video. I don't know whose video it is. We're presenting it here. We showed who authored it. But I think we can no longer hold on to this information and say, we're not going to give it up. It's too valuable not to share. It's too useful to others in the process. And I think it's better for the design community to actually share that information with the constructors, because I think it'll get us to a greater parity. I mean, the constructors constantly work with documents that are not fully coordinated, and they're not fully coordinated because we don't finish them. So I think we ought to be compensated, and I think we ought to be sharing it.
And I think, Jay, just the way that we can help with that is be explicit up front. That yes, I want a Revit model, and yes, I want you to share it with contractors. So at least if you know that going into a project when you're competing, you can price it to what you think is right. So if you can build that into your RFP, I think that's the best thing that a client can do, is be upfront with you that I want to have that Revit model from the design team, but I'm going to share it with the builder, I'm going to share it with the facilities guys. That is, if you know that up front, I think you're in a much better space. You don't have that awkward conversation afterwards. So that's what I can hope to do. Sure.
My name's John Hale. I'm with the Department of National Defense, and I really applaud what you're talking about. It's really excellent discussion. I just want to follow up from what Ian said about the PXPs. It's more of a comment than a question, but I think that is the most important thing going into an owner has to be more specific and make things mandatory, especially at the PXP stage. It's a really great statement you put up there about what your requirements are. It's really nice to want to have that stuff at FM, but I think there's a lot more thought that has to go behind that, and I really challenge this room right here to help the owners out to understand how to make, I can't go as an owner and tell a designer how to design and constructor how to construct, but I sure know I want that FM handover to be in some sort of a COBE or some kind of information exchange format that I can consume. And I challenge all the owners in the room to actually start thinking about how to consume that information and use it in your other systems. So I really can't say enough about that process. So.
This actually is a side note to that. When we were going to, on this project, we sequentially tendered everything, but there's a big discussion about when we tendered the BAS. And again, I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew I wanted it open. And I didn't want to lock down proprietary systems saying, sorry, that's closed, you can only use XYZ controls interface, and we don't let you do anything like that. So it does prompt other discussions about other things that you buy. It's not just about the BIM model. There's other pieces to it for sure. So I am going to take that back about the more of a BIM standard that we can do to put some more words around that. I definitely think that can only help.
We need it.
Yeah, we need it.
Thanks.
So thank you very much. This latter part of the discussion, I know we could take to a whole different level and probably have a conference around it by itself, but I'd like to thank you all for an excellent presentation, and your honesty and candor is really heartwarming. Thank you.